Hey everyone, welcome to Watch Complications. I'm Brian. Just to set the expectations up front, this is not one of my in-depth technical videos on something related to watches or horology. This is about Kickstarter wait times. I'm also going to tie that into my experience with Rolex wait times and just talk about this and have a conversation. I think it's important detail. There are a lot of viewers out there who have used Kickstarter, consider it, maybe a little bit afraid of it, or stay 10 feet away from it. But I wanted to give some real tangible details about wait times in my experience with the platform, mostly related to watches, but I'm gonna throw in a few other examples for fun and context about Kickstarter. If you like what you see here or across other videos on the channel, consider hitting the subscribe, maybe join as a member, buy me a cup of coffee a month, and all that good stuff. Anything related to the products I mentioned here or watches, you will find links and description stuff in the description below. Okay, so let's get chatting, but in terms of what I'm wearing today, it's one of my Kickstarter watches, the Hamtun Nanok. I've got on a Barton silicone soft rubber strap. I like the Elite straps better, but this shade of blue comes in a soft silicone. Don't wear this watch that often. I just can't bring myself to sell it. The reason why is it's my only mechanical day date and with a full day, and I love having the full day at 12 and then the date at 6. It's got great overall balance. I just can't bring myself to sell it. There's a couple disclaimers right up front. Some of these things should just be given. One, everybody's going to have different experiences. So I am just sharing mine, giving you context for the sort of thing that I've experienced or that you might expect to endure if you're going to use Kickstarter to back watches specifically, but maybe even some other things. So that's one thing. It's going to be a different experience for everybody. I've been fairly lucky in my experience in that all the products that I've backed have eventually been delivered, even though there's some that have been very much like sort of, okay, maybe it won't. I'll talk about those. But I've been generally lucky and haven't been sort of just left hanging with my money gone on anything. And that's not the same case with everybody else. Kickstarter is primarily used for two types of companies when it comes to watches. Those are sort of factory brands from China who try to say this is the latest and greatest innovation, disrupting the industry kind of thing, which is mostly just junk. And then the other one is micro brands trying to get their footing, right? Whether that's with a new product, maybe their new brand. What I like to see with Kickstarter is if a brand launches, one or two watches on the platform, eventually they can get to a point where they do pre-order. This comes down to risk. Kickstarter is about offloading the risk of manufacturing costs to the consumer. And, there's not a lot of protection for the buyer. And so if someone decides not to fulfill the campaign, it gets funded, they take all the backers' money, they can take off and they're really not much responsible for anything. But whenever a brand goes the pre-order route, the risk more falls on the brand owner or the company behind the watch manufacturing. So yeah, micro brands, factory brands, and so mostly what I've dealt with is micro brands. And so we're talking watches that are usually sub $1,000. In that 200 to 800 range is very common. And it's usually for brands' first, second, or third sort of watches in their product lines. Now, a lot of watch Kickstarters are discussed in like Facebook groups and stuff like that related to micro brands. A lot of brand owners are pretty well known. There are people who back almost every single micro brand that's coming out with something. There's people who are very selective and choosy. I'm more on that selective and choosy. I don't use it too much. I have backed 6 watches since about 2017. So in 5 years, I've backed about 6 watches. So about, a watch a year. And I have really sort of steered away from it over time. I use it for some other stuff. I get back a few games, some other items, accessories and whatnot. But I'm not one of those like serial backers that's just like backing everything and using it all the time. I'm pretty selective about it. Again, people will have different perspectives on that. Some people absolutely refuse to take the risk and say, no, I'm just going to buy something direct from a site or whatever. And then there's some people who just spend their lives on. I am neither of those things. So one of the most common lines I hear in watch groups is complaining about Rolex and wait times. And I've got 2 Rolexes in my household, and I'm waiting on a third. And so I have a little experience with it. It's not one of the big brands I go after. I have a very diversified collection. Maybe I should do a state of the collection at some point. I've never done one of those. I've kind of, shied away from just, showing my entire collection kind of thing. But maybe I will at some point. Maybe you can convince me that, let me know in the comments if it's something you'd like to see. But people complain about it. Like, I got to go in, I got to, register interest essentially. It might be a type of dealership where it's like, we know we want to get you one, we'll get you, just give us a deposit. You still have to wait months for it. So people complain about that waiting all the time. Yet a lot of those people that are complaining will use Kickstarter, will back things, and what are the wait times there? In fact, my history in terms of wait times is less with Rolex than it is with Kickstarter. I want to put that out there. You can't complain about wait times for a brand like Rolex, because if you've not bought one, yeah, you're going to wait months. Well, if you've ever backed a Kickstarter, you've waited months, maybe years. So if you're willing to do it one place, you'll be willing to do it in the other. I think it really comes down more to money than anything. Willingness to go into the AD and have like a heart-to-heart, a discussion or something. I don't know, but I'll say more about that in a second. Now, here's a process I want to use with this discussion. I have 6 watches. I'm going to start with the most recent and then work my way back. For each of them, I will say when I backed it, when it was fully funded, that's whenever they take the money, what the estimated delivery time frame was, and when it actually shipped, and then I'll give you some averages at the end. And like I said, I'll throw in a couple other examples of things that I've backed on Kickstarter to give some more context. So the first one is the Selten Meteorite watch. Brand new microbrand, first watch from the company, and I love the watch, except for the loud rotor. I recently reviewed this. You can find the link in the video and in the description below. But this was backed at the very end of July. So like the last day of July, July 31st, 2021. It was a longer campaign. They can choose time frames, different amounts of weeks or days to keep a Kickstarter live. This was a longer one. It ended and was funded in the middle of September of 2021. The original estimated delivery was November of 2021. So they gave themselves just a few months to get this out. I don't know how much work was done prior. This is really something about Kickstarter. Some people go in with already having a plan, manufacturing partners figured out. They've got the supply chain figured out. They've already started building, they got prototypes already. Some will be like, we don't even have a prototype yet. So it really can vary. But they only gave themselves a few months. So I don't know, they must have had some of the work done. This is one of those Kickstarters where people will start to get sort of irritated as things drag on. Communication is paramount for any of the creators on Kickstarter. You have to communicate, whether it's weekly, monthly, you have to have expectations set of, I'm going to communicate this much this way. And so people know what to expect. I mean, it comes down to expectations more than anything. Set those as a creator and you're going to have a much better time. Leo did pretty good on this one in terms of communication, but it shipped in May, end of May, middle May, end of May in 2022. So 9 months, about half a year longer than was originally intended. Now, some of these projects that I backed in recent memory were probably somewhat impacted by the pandemic. Supply chains have been an issue, particularly if manufacturing's in China, there's lockdowns. That's, to be taken with a grain of salt in terms of timelines and getting products out to people. The pandemic has simply had an effect on that. So you keep that in mind through some of these, and the dates will help you with that. Yeah, the original estimate here was 3 months, took 9, but the key is it got delivered. And that's much better alternative, even if it's late, than someone just, scampering off with your money, never to be seen or heard from again. The next one was a Vario trench, the 1918 trench. I had 2 of these. I have a 37 millimeter white dial, and then I have the 40 millimeter Medic. Really love them. I love that watch. Both of them. It's a great watch. But anyway, this was backed in mid-November 2020. It ended when it was funded toward the end of November 2020. November 24th is when it ended. The original estimation, and this was something already in the pipeline. Vario's been around for a while. They've run several Kickstarters. They're doing pre-order stuff more so now than anything. But it was estimated about 3 months out, February 2021, and it actually shipped, my first one, shipped in March of 2021. So estimate was about 3 months. It made it about 4 months. So pretty good success on that one. The only delay was that some of the other models that came along a little bit later, like the 40 millimeter Medic, that took longer. That didn't get to me until July of 2021, so about 7 months from the original campaign. So those 2 watches, the Selten and the Vario Trench, were micro brands. They were automatic mechanical watches. The next one is a factory brand, the Leville Regulator. I really like this watch. I don't buy very many factory brand types of watches. I don't typically buy quartz watches, but I really liked the look. It's sort of like the champagne dial, the mixes of the dark blue and the dark red, the regulator. I didn't have any other sort of regulator at that moment in my collection. It just had a nice look about it, and it was $99. Like, why not? And actually sold it. Really like that watch. Probably would have kept it, but it's just something I wasn't getting wrist time compared to the others. I still got my money back. I may even got a little bit more than I paid for it. That's just crazy. So really nice watch. Back to the beginning of January in 2019. And just a few days later, 6 days later, it was fully funded, and they took my money in mid-January 2019. Their original estimate for delivery was May 2019, so 5 months. It actually shipped the last day of April 2019, so they beat their estimate by 1 day in terms of the actual shipping, but they hit the nail on the head, 5 months. That's more likely to happen, I think, with a factory brand. They already have the manufacturing, they've already got the designs, they've done all the work. It's just a matter of the actual manufacturing of the number of watches to go to the backers. And so 5 months expectation, 5 months delivery. Yes. One of the other types of Kickstarter, I'm gonna call it brand, is Xeric. And I've only backed one of their campaigns. They're what I would call a serial Kickstarter creator. They have what I could count 15 campaigns that they've done. And I understand why. They're offloading, again, all that risk to the backers. But, you know, after a brand has, let's say 1, 2, maybe 3 Kickstarters, if they haven't run their business efficiently enough that they have some capital at that point to be able to take on that risk of manufacturing, to do a pre-order and run the business via their website, then I kind of have to question their motives. And so Xeric, for me, falls into that category. I would not back any of their watches again, I don't think, at this point. It's only one. I thought I would like it. The design looked cool. This was the Atmosphere. I signed up for the quote-unquote early delivery. Sometimes campaigns will have where if you get in by a certain time or you're a certain number backer, or early bird, you get an earlier delivery. Then maybe someone comes on like the last day of the campaign. I like the look of it. Ended up very much disliking it, somewhat critical in my review, and ended up selling it as well. But anyway, backed it in mid-November 2018. It was fully funded. They took my money at the end of November 2018. Estimate was 2 months. And again, they are sort of an established brand, but they do everything through Kickstarter, basically. It shipped in that 2 to 3 months. It may be, you know, half a month longer than what they had originally estimated. It shipped at the end of January. So when they say estimation is January, there's a difference between the 1st of January and the end of January, right? It's got 31 days. So, you know, that 2 to 3 month range, and they did hit that target. It did deliver in January, very last day. So a couple micro brands saw some brief delays, but fairly good on the target and got them delivered. Sort of the factory brand or repeat Kickstarter brands kind of hit their targets. Here's where it gets interesting. The one I'm wearing, the Hamtun Nanok. This is a sticky wicket, okay? So this particular campaign from Hamtun Watches, which is now defunct, they don't exist anymore. This one was one of their smaller campaigns for this, you know, day date watch, which it was, for me, it's the most attractive one, but people are so much into the dive thing these days that their divers did really well. It's called the Kraken. There was an H1, an H2, and an H3. Anyway, the Hamtun Nanok had 137 backers, raised over 40,000 pounds. I backed it in October 2018. A month later, November 2018, it was funded, and the estimated delivery was May 2019, so about 6 to 7 months. It actually shipped mid-July, about 9 months, and was successful, got delivered. Hamtun had a few other successful campaigns. Very successful was the Kraken H2. They had over 1,300 backers, raised over 417,000 pounds. Extremely successful. And then following up that was the Zis watch, which did fairly well. And because of the success of the H2 Kraken, they had an H3 Kraken, and it went up in smoke. So it had 482 backers, almost 200,000 pounds, and then the creator also had a secondary project running not long after that that got funded and then has essentially disappeared. Claimed fell in rough times, wasn't communicating again. I mentioned the communication piece, and has just sort of gone off the map. And so not a brand, it's not coming back. People lost money. And, if you pay, I don't know, $300, $400, $500, pounds, whatever, things for people, that brand sort of crashed and burned when things were going really well, had found the success. Sad story. So it doesn't always turn out. Didn't happen to be the one I backed. The one I backed was seen through to success, fruition. I got a watch on my wrist. But that's not always a guarantee. Even with a brand that's had a couple successful Kickstarters already, you just never know. And so is what it is. And then the first watch I backed on Kickstarter back in 2018 was called the Horizon. It was a disc that rotated on a Ronda 515 movement. So it was a different way of telling time. It was very cool conceptually. Same chaps behind Marlowe Watch Company, very established brand, mostly does mechanical watches. I backed that watch in February, end of February 2018. It was fully funded a month later, end of March 2018. Estimated delivery was 6 months in September of 2018. Didn't actually ship until the following April in 2019. So what was original estimate for delivery was 6 months after funding. It really shipped 13 months, just over a year later in 2019. So that one had delays in manufacturing, unexpected technical costs because of the design and, let's say, even like the weight of the disc on top of the quartz movement. And that sort of lagging and reworking tooling and et cetera, led to the dissolving of the brand. They actually had a really cool second concept in their pipeline, but it just didn't go well, the Kickstarter and the delays and the costs. So that brand didn't go away. Again, it's a watch I sold, just wasn't getting wrist time. It was cool conceptually, just wasn't wearing it, and something about it, I guess, just didn't connect. Ended up selling it and getting my money back. So anyway, 6 campaigns. I've given you some times and visuals as we've gone along. The average estimate from the 6 watches I've backed on Kickstarter was 4 months for delivery. That's the overall average. Now, some of those vary widely, 2 months up to 6, 7 months, but average a little over 4 months. Average delivery was about 7.5 months later. So even with good brands, successful brands, well-known, established brands, they still don't get the timelines right and expectations. I would say always take whatever the estimates are giving you and double it. That should be your expectation for a Kickstarter. And it could be better, it could be worse, but on average, double whatever their estimate is, and you'll feel a little bit happier, a little more content as you wait. It may not happen, and like with the Hamtun Kraken H3, but you've got to just have that reality. I talked about this in my Selten review recently. Since it was a Kickstarter, it was one of those that was delayed, right? They were originally estimating about 3. It took half a year longer. It took about 9 months. I understand people commenting on, the campaigns and Facebook groups and whatnot, saying, hey, where's the watches? Have you all heard anything? And this goes to the brand owners I already mentioned. Just have some clear-cut process for when you're going to communicate, how you're going to communicate, so people know what to expect. But also, I guess I'm patient. I guess that's just natural. It's like, I back a Kickstarter. You have to know that you've taken the risk, and it may not happen. You want it to happen in a time frame. I don't understand the stressing over it. It's like you gave your money, and you hope you get something back out of it. That's just be your mental process. You chose to hit submit and give them your money up front. Put it on the shelf mentally and just think it'll show up at some point. It'll get here when it gets here. That's how I handle Kickstarter when I back it. I was like, oh, that's a cool product. No matter what it is, it could be a game, right? It could be a pin. It could be a watch. It's like, I backed it. All right, that's on the mental shelf for me. Until, it's nice to see the updates that come through the platform, the brand owners communicating, that's all nice. But man, I put that on the shelf and it's like, you know, get here when it gets here. I wish more people really approached the platform that way, because that's the way it's meant to be. Some people will not like me saying that. It's like, well, that's my hard-earned money. It's like, well, if you want to make sure your money gets a direct one-to-one exchange for your product without any time limits or having to be patient around it, then go to a store and buy a watch, or go online and order one. You know, don't use Kickstarter if that's the way you feel about it. My advice: if you back something on Kickstarter, you like it, hopefully you'll get it, put it on the shelf. It'll show up when it shows up. Life is a lot less stressful if you take that approach. And when they say this is going to be 6 months, double it. You'll probably be pleasantly surprised when it shows up early based on your doubling of the delivery rate. But it could take that long. So let me connect this to Rolex. My average wait time was about 7.5 months for any of these Kickstarter watches. My first Rolex, 3-month wait. The second one, a 4-month wait. The current one I'm waiting on, it's been about 7 months. I think I've hit around 7 months. And that one might be a year or two wait. And I've had Kickstarters take that long. I've had Kickstarters take way longer than that. It comes down to that mentality of just being patient. I told them what I would like. They know. You can check in every so often. You say, hey, keep that relationship flowing. Maybe you pop in and check out jewelry or buy something else in the meantime, because other things happen, whether it's Mother's Days, Father's Days, birthdays, Christmases, Valentine's, like other stuff's going to come up where you're going to need to pop in and maybe consider something, you know, chat, let them know you're still interested and I'm looking forward to it. Keep those lines of communication open. It just drives me nuts that people will complain about one or the other. It's like, do you understand that this is like the same situation? Like, you're interested in it. Just, you've said you're interested, or you back this thing. Just, yeah, put it on the shelf. Just be patient. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. No reason to force it. At least they didn't take your money up front. I have had one where I did a deposit, which is fine. It showed up, you know, 4 months later. But it's like, you're not out anything at least, and no one's going to run off with your money. And when it gets here, it gets here. I just don't understand the pain and the stress and the emotions and the tempers and things like that over this stuff. It's like, at the end of the day, it's just stuff too. It's just, I know it's weird as an enthusiast collector, it's just watches. Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's just stuff, right? There's more important things in life. Now, to give you some context, I've backed some other fun stuff, and this is more about time and what I'm willing, or what people might experience, or how patient sometimes you have to be when it comes to Kickstarter. One of my most recent and favorite things I've done, I'm a software engineer. Those of you who watch the channel regularly know that. So I like programming, and I'm a professor of computer science, but I have a tidbit. You can't see it. It's over here. Maybe you've seen it in some of my videos over in the corner. Let me show you. See it over there? Yeah, that's my tidbit. Cool, right? Has all kinds of fun stuff on it. It's got my YouTube channel information. I've got a watch collection app, all kinds of fun stuff. Love writing code for this thing. Anyway, I backed this in April of 2021. It was funded mid-April 2021. Estimated delivery was 5 months. In September of 2021, actually showed up in December of 2021. So original estimate was 5 months, ended up being 8 months. So 3 months over schedule. I back games sometime. Two of the bigger ones that I've backed, and I'm not going to go through all of mine, just one brand example with 2 games. There was this game back in 2017 called The Seventh Continent. Crazy gameplay. Thousands of hours of gameplay. Amazing cooperative sort of game. I had over 44,000, almost 44,000 backers, raised over $7 million. I backed it in October, beginning of October 2017. It was funded mid-October 2017. Original estimate was March 2018, 6 months out, and it shipped in April 2018, so 7 months. So original target 6, got it in 7. Great. They came out with a second game called the Seventh Citadel. 33,000 backers, over $3 million. That's a lot of money people could run away with. I backed it in September 2020. It was funded mid-October 2020. Original estimate was May 22. It is June 22. So already at 1 year and 8 months, that was the estimate. And the latest update is next year, 2023. it's going to be at least over 2 years. So they had a pretty long timeline of 1 year, 8 months, and they've blown by that and are still working on gameplay. They send regular updates. They send a monthly update. I kind of know what to expect with them. It's like every month I'm going to get an update. That's what I meant about the expectations. If you're regular about it, you'll be fine. But still, people are getting antsy, right? Tired of waiting. So, but it's going to be 2.5 years. I might even get close to 3 years for that. Again, that's why I said put it on the shelf. They've done it before. Could they run off with the money at this point? That's $300. Yeah, but I took the risk. My fault, right? And yeah, I could be mad at them. Someone would be a jerk for taking off with the money, but that's the way it works. It's what you're buying into. So waiting on that one. That's going to be a 2-year wait. Not going to wait that long for a Rolex. Depends on the specific one you're after, I suppose. And then, big one, related to horology, there was this movie back in 2018 called Keeper of Time. And the director, his name is Michael, the movie finally debuted in New York City just a couple months ago in 2022. It's a great movie, Keeper of Time. Check it out. I was a backer. It was only $15. So not a high-risk investment. It's still $15, okay? And that was just for a digital copy of the movie. They had some other accessories and things like that. I just wanted just a digital copy of the movie. It looked like a really cool. They talked to like 4 really well-known elite watchmakers, you know, Roger Smith, Philippe Dufour, so on and so forth. And it's really cool about time itself. And I backed it in November, beginning of November 2018. It was funded a few days later. Again, beginning in November 2018. Original estimate was October 2019, 11 months. Gave himself almost a year. I got my digital copy at the end of April 2022, 3.5 years later. Now, again, there were pandemic-related issues, particularly as it came to interviewing and interacting with people, making the score for the film. A lot of moving pieces. And then there seemed like a really long waiting period for things to open back up enough where the film could be screened, you know, for festivals and this kind of stuff in the places that the director wanted it to be. But people got pretty upset. It's like, this is not going to happen. It's never going to happen. And eventually it did, but it took 3.5 years. So I'm not averaging the other sort of non-watch, you know, projects, because that time can be anything, but it's almost always over the estimate. And that's something to keep in mind if you're going to back Kickstarter. Put it on the shelf, people. That's enough. That's my experience with Kickstarter. If you choose to back something, know what to expect. You probably have other experiences. Feel free to share those in the comments below. Good, bad, you know, the truth, the ugly, the whatever. If you back stuff on Kickstarter, hopefully you have luck and get things that are funded. And F-35s again. It's also really windy today. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. Again, different type of video. Chats with Brian. Check out some of the others. If you want more technical stuff or watch reviews, peruse the channel. Also, my merchandise is up now. Buy something. Thanks, everybody. I'm out.